The roar of the jet engine swallowed most of the conversation on the runway, but not the words that gutted me. Only family is allowed. For words. Cold, surgical. Delivered without a blink, without the faintest tremor in her voice. Just a tilt of her head, and that same sterile impatience she'd perfected over the years. I stood there, halfway up the stairs to the plane, my duffel bag slung over one shoulder, the other hand still holding my phone, screen dim. I had just answered her assistant's last-minute text, quick update. Plane will leave at 6:30. RSVP mandatory. Apparently, RSVP didn't include the man who co-founded the company. The man who used to sleep next to her. The man who designed the very system this expansion retreat was built upon. Samantha, I said, calm, even though every bone in my body vibrated with humiliation. What the hell are you talking about? She didn't move. Didn't even glance at the board members behind her, sipping champagne like they were about to fly to Monaco, not Denver. You're not on the manifest, she said. And this is a board family strategy weekend. You're neither now. I caught a glimpse of Marcus, one of our earliest hires, who I'd personally trained, avoiding my eyes as he slipped past her onto the jet. One hand clutching a leather laptop bag, the other adjusting his tie like he could tighten his way out of guilt. I forced a laugh. That's a joke, right? Samantha didn't laugh. She stepped slightly to the side. Security's asking if you're stepping off or need an escort. I should have shouted, thrown the bag, demanded my place. Instead, I took a slow step back down the stairs. The wheels of the jet's cart whirred past me as they loaded the last of the luggage. I saw it there, my logo, still etched on the boxes, Valiant Systems. A name we chose together. But no one remembered that. I see, I said. My voice didn't break. My hands didn't shake. I wanted her to know that much, at least. Well played. Her assistant, Daniel or Devin, some forgettable Ivy League puppet, tapped on his tablet, already waving someone over in a black polo marked Private Security. I raised one hand slightly, dismissively, before they reached me. I'm leaving, I said. Samantha didn't nod, didn't move. The jet door hissed behind her. One final look. Her eyes were dead calm, like I wasn't her husband, like I wasn't the man who'd helped build everything she owned. I stepped away, down the tarmac, boots crunching softly on the gravel beneath the concrete. I didn't stop until I was at the edge of the terminal glass wall. And there, reflected back at me, was a man I didn't recognize. Gray at the temples, eyes hollowed out from too many late nights, posture stiff from years of sacrifice, of silence. A man who had done everything right and was now treated like a liability. As the jet lifted, a sleek line of corporate betrayal soaring into the clouds, I finally let the silence settle. She thought it was over, that I'd walk away quietly, pack my pride into a bag, and fade from the company's story like an outdated appendix. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't just a name on a contract. I was the infrastructure. I was the code. And she had just severed herself from the one person who still knew where the kill switch was. She wanted to erase me? I'd make sure there was nothing left of her empire to remember. Samantha didn't always walk like the world owed her something. She used to walk fast because she was trying to outrun failure. That's the version of her I met in 2015. Scrappy, relentless, brilliant in all the ways that didn't require code. She couldn't write a single usable line of Python, but she could talk an investor into handing over their second mortgage. I was living in a two-bedroom walk-up in Tempe at the time, teaching night classes at a community college, and spending the rest of my hours building what I thought was going to be a smart scheduling app. The idea was clunky then, half-formed. But the core was strong, dynamic optimization based on shifting inputs. A learning engine. It started with school timetables, grew into logistics, then inventory, then ops systems. I called it something dumb, Project Kestrel. She renamed it Valiant. She found me through a mutual acquaintance who knew I was sitting on something. We met at a cafe she probably picked to look casual, though I later found out it was one block from her co-working space. You're either sitting on a gold mine, she told me that day, stirring her overpriced espresso, or you're too scared to dig. I remember looking at her and thinking two things. One, she had nerve. Two, she might be right. We started working together that same week. She brought the pitch. I brought the product. She cleaned up the language, made it presentable. I made the damn thing run. It was equal parts dream and delusion, long nights of code reviews and pitch deck edits and takeout boxes. No money, no safety net, no end in sight. But it felt honest. She challenged me, didn't flatter me. And I needed that. The romance didn't come right away. It crept in through exhaustion and adrenaline. The first kiss happened at 3:17 a.m. during a debugging session that went sideways. I was rewriting a broken query. She was half asleep on the couch in her hoodie. I said something sarcastic. She fired back. We both laughed, and then, just like that, the air shifted. We were married less than a year later. No big wedding. Just a courthouse, 2 rings, and a bottle of champagne in a rented Airbnb. We didn't do it for tradition. We did it because it felt inevitable. Like we were already sharing a name, even if only on a cap table. The company grew fast. Too fast. Valiant started signing contracts with mid-size firms, then Fortune 500s. Samantha was in her element, networking, negotiating, closing. She knew how to take a phone call while jogging and still land a $1 million deal. And I loved that about her. I genuinely did. At first, it was easy to stay in the background. I was never the guy for magazine covers. She had the look, the voice, the brand. When reporters came calling, I'd say, let her speak. She made people believe in what we were building. But I started noticing the pattern. In interviews, she stopped saying we. It became my vision, my product, what I started. I thought it was a PR thing. I let it slide. Then came the TechCrunch profile. An 8-page spread titled, The Woman Who Tamed Automation. No mention of me, not even a photo. When I brought it up, she said, people need a simple narrative. One face. It's marketing, Aaron. That's all. I remember nodding like I understood. But I didn't. She stopped inviting me to investor dinners. Said I didn't enjoy small talk. She took board meetings solo. Said I hated suits. Eventually, I wasn't even on the calendar invites. Then came the reorg. We used to sign decisions together. After the 3rd funding round, she restructured for scale. My title stayed the same, CTO, but my authority didn't. Product managers started reporting directly to her. My own engineers began looping me in last, asking if Samantha had signed off. The office changed, too. I had designed it with a shared leadership floor, glass walls, no hierarchy. She moved her office upstairs. Perception matters, she said. My name was quietly removed from the website's front page, from the About Us section, from the app credits. I was still listed under technical advisors. That one stung. We fought, but not loudly. She was always calm, always rational. She'd smile and say, you're being sensitive, or you're not seeing the bigger picture. And maybe she was right. Maybe I wasn't. The final straw came on a Monday morning. I was walking past the open space where we displayed our original beta hardware, the prototypes we built in our living room. I noticed the plaques had been swapped out. Her name was there. Twice. Mine was gone. I stood there for a full 5 minutes, just staring. One of the interns walked by and asked if I needed help finding something. I told him no. But in that moment, I realized I had lost something I didn't even know could be taken. She hadn't stolen the company in a single blow. She had done it the way glaciers carve out valleys, slowly, silently, and with unstoppable force. And I'd stood still the entire time, watching it happen. The pen was expensive, sleek, weighty, black lacquer. One of those kinds you give at retirement parties or IPO ceremonies. It rested between us on the glass coffee table in our penthouse living room, catching the evening light like a needle poised to stitch or sever. Samantha sat across from me in a slate gray wrap dress, barefoot, legs curled under her. She looked relaxed, even warm, swirling a glass of red wine and talking like this was just another strategic alignment conversation. We just need to consolidate, she said, not looking directly at me. The board's been pushing for a more streamlined ownership structure. Nothing major, just centralizing voting power so we can move fast on the global expansion. Fewer signatures. Fewer legal hurdles. I stared at the stack of papers she had laid in front of me. The legal jargon was clear. Transfer of voting shares, merger of authority, updated leadership chain. Once I signed, my ownership in Valiant would be symbolic at best. And why you? I asked. She blinked, then smiled like it was the dumbest question in the world. Aaron, come on. You hate this part of the business. You've said it yourself 100 times. Governance, politics, board votes. It drains you. You should be building, not negotiating with people in suits who don't understand code. She leaned forward. This just makes it cleaner. On paper, what's mine is yours. What's yours is mine. It should have been a warning. Anytime someone uses vows to justify paperwork, you're already losing. Still, I hesitated. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I did. That was the problem. We'd always said we were partners, that we didn't need to protect ourselves from each other. And in a vacuum, I believed that. But we didn't live in a vacuum. We lived in a boardroom full of men in suits who had started looking at me like a technical advisor instead of a founder. And Samantha had stopped correcting them. "I'll still be CTO, right?" I asked. She rolled her eyes. "Of course. No one's replacing you." I remember picking up the pen and rolling it between my fingers. "Feels like a lot of trust," I said. She reached out, touched my wrist gently. "We built this together. That's not changing." So I signed. Not all at once. My signature came slowly, letter by letter, like I could drag the doubt out of it. But when the ink dried, the shift began. It didn't take long. 2 weeks later, Samantha made an announcement in a company-wide meeting about a new initiative, a joint venture with a federal agency focused on data infrastructure. She'd negotiated it, secured the funding, presented the proposal. I heard about it the same way the interns did, from the live stream. My calendar invites started thinning. Not all at once, just a slow erosion. Project review calls got canceled. Strategy syncs moved without notice. The Valiant Slack workspace quietly shifted leadership tags. Her name appeared on every project thread. Mine faded. I confronted her once. It was late, in the kitchen. She was heating leftovers in silk pajamas, hair still pinned from whatever media panel she'd just headlined. "You've made changes," I said. She didn't even look up. "We've made progress." "You didn't talk to me about restructuring the R&D team," I added. She shrugged. It made sense. They weren't delivering fast enough. They were delivering exactly what I designed them to deliver. "Well," she said, spooning risotto onto a plate, "maybe the design needs to evolve." The next day, my lead engineer, David, asked me in private if I was still the one driving direction. I didn't know what to say. I had trained him myself. Now he was trying to read which way the wind was blowing. Eventually, I got my answer. One Friday evening, I walked into the 16th floor war room, our most secure strategy suite, and found the door access denied. Badge rejected. I tried twice. On the third attempt, the screen read, "Unauthorized access. Please contact systems admin." I stood there for a full minute before it hit me. I was no longer considered executive access. Later that night, I asked Samantha if she had removed my credentials. She looked at me like I was being dramatic. It was probably IT doing a systems refresh. I didn't believe her. Because the next morning, I saw the board's internal update memo sent to senior staff. There it was in plain text, all operational leadership decisions to route through Samantha Vaughn pending long-term consolidation. No mention of me. That was the first time I truly understood. This wasn't drift. This was design. She was preparing the company and the world for a version of Valiant that didn't include me. And I had helped her build the door I was now locked out of. The night after they locked me out of the war room, I didn't go home. I drove until the freeway bled into desert, then took an exit I hadn't used in years, not since the early days of Valiant, when the company still fit into 2 rooms and a rented server rack. I knew exactly where I was going. A small co-working building near Mesa, now mostly forgotten by the people who once built dreams inside it. It was here, in a side room with concrete walls and a flickering overhead bulb, that I had installed something no one else knew about. A failsafe. I built it during the first 6 months of Valiant's existence. Back when the software was still raw code and sleepless nights. Before lawyers, before NDAs, before boardrooms and glass offices. I hadn't done it out of paranoia, not then. I had done it because I understood systems. And every system, no matter how powerful, needs an off switch. It wasn't a backdoor in the traditional sense. Nothing so obvious. It was a recursive loop embedded in an innocuous analytics module. Invisible to scanners, invisible to devs. It looked like a dormant function, some deprecated metrics code from an old version of the product. But I knew the activation phrase, and I had kept the access point alive. The world saw Valiant as a fortress, airtight security, end-to-end encryption, real-time redundancy. A product powerful enough to run logistics for defense contractors, supply chains, high-frequency trade platforms. But that was just the skin. Underneath it, under all the polish and PR, the real machinery still ran on my original core. My code. My logic. I sat down at the old terminal, dusty, slow, but still functional. Booted up the secured shell interface. Entered the passphrase I hadn't used in over 4 years. Watched as the system opened itself, line by line, like a loyal machine welcoming its real architect. No resistance. No alerts. Just the steady pulse of a system that remembered its creator. Samantha thought she had cut me out. She thought control lived in legal contracts and quarterly reports. But code doesn't care about paperwork. I ran a silent diagnostic, not to shut the system down, not yet. First, I needed to know how deep the rot had spread, and what I saw confirmed everything. They had rerouted major executive functions to a centralized node. Hers. Every deployment, every infrastructure change, every sensitive permission string was tied directly to her credentials. Stupid. Overconfident. She had stripped away all the redundancy, all the checks, because she never imagined I might still have access. She thought I'd signed away my leverage the day I handed her those shares. But code doesn't forget. And I never delete. I executed the first command. It was simple, a credential refresh on the executive level. Not loud, not visible, but effective. One by one, every top-tier access token, Samantha's included, was revoked. From the outside, everything still looked normal. Interfaces worked. Clients could log in. The UI was unchanged. But behind the scenes, the control layer had shifted. To me, I leaned back in the chair and watched the logs confirm it. Valiant now required biometric verification for all administrative actions. And the only accepted biometric belonged to me. She wouldn't know yet. Maybe in an hour. Maybe by morning. But when she tried to deploy a new update or approve a system-wide push, she'd find her empire frozen beneath her fingertips. She'd think it was a glitch. She'd call IT. They'd panic. And by the time they realized what had happened, it would already be too late. This wasn't sabotage. This was reclamation. She had taken my name off the documents, off the building, off the history. But she forgot the part that mattered most. I wasn't the face of Valiant. I was the foundation. And now, I was going to pull it out from under her, one silent keystroke at a time. The call came at 6:04 a.m. I was already awake, sipping black coffee at the kitchen island of the rental I'd moved into 2 months ago. Quiet place. Sparse. White walls and nothing on them. I kept it that way on purpose. No distractions. Her name lit up the screen like a trigger. Samantha Vaughn. I didn't answer. The phone rang again 30 seconds later. Then again. And again. On the 5th attempt, I picked up. What the hell did you do? She snapped before I could say a word. No, good morning. No pretense. Just panic. Pure, unfiltered, clawing up through her throat like it was choking her. I assume something's wrong? I said, keeping my voice casual. We're locked out, she hissed. No executive logins are functioning. The dashboard is frozen. DevOps can't get root access. The engineers say the code's rebuilding itself in real time. Like it's fighting them. That's strange, I said, setting my mug down softly. Sounds like a design flaw. Don't play dumb, Aaron. I know this is you. I didn't deny it. Didn't need to. She was smart enough to know, but not smart enough to stop it. I warned you once, I said. I told you this wasn't yours to erase. There was a long pause on the line. I could hear her breathing shallow, sharp. Undo it, she said quietly. No. You're going to destroy everything we built. I smiled. You already did that when you pretended I was never part of it. Her voice shifted from panic to anger. The mask slipping back on. You're acting like a child. I let the silence stretch. Then, and you're acting like you still have power. You don't. You have a title and an empty dashboard. She tried a different tactic. The wheedling tone she used in interviews when she wanted people to underestimate her. We can fix this, Aaron. Let's just sit down. Talk it through. There's no we anymore. Another silence. This one longer. Deeper. Then her voice dropped to something colder. Sharper. You think you've won? You think you can just hold the company hostage and walk away clean? I'm not holding anything hostage, I said. I'm reclaiming what's mine. You made it public the moment you locked me out. You'll ruin your own name with this. My name's already gone, remember? You erased it. The media forgot. The board forgot. But the system didn't. She was quiet. Then, finally, with venom, you bastard. Goodbye, Samantha. I hung up. She called back once. I didn't answer. By 7:15 a.m., the stock had started to slide. By 8 a.m., I got a message from one of the engineers I had mentored back in the early days, one of the few left after her restructuring spree. The message was short. She's spiraling. The board's furious. No one knows how you did it. But they know you did. Respect. Respect. It was ironic. I'd spent years earning none of it in the open. Now that I was invisible, I was finally being seen. At 9:13 a.m., the first board member called. Aaron, he said, voice strained. We're experiencing operational disruption. We'd like your input on a resolution. I could hear the desperation under the corporate polish. Oh, I said. Now you remember who I am. We can work something out. Bring you back in. Co-leadership. Equity restoration. You let her erase me. That was your decision, I finished. And this is mine. I hung up. By noon, she was at my door. No warning. No assistant. Just Samantha, in a navy blue blazer, makeup perfect, eyes wild. I didn't invite her in. We need to talk, she said. I leaned against the doorframe. I don't think we do. Aaron, please, she said, and for a second, just a second, I saw it. The flicker of uncertainty. Of someone realizing their armor wasn't holding. You built your throne on my work, I said. Now it's burning. You can't destroy everything. I met her gaze. I already did. And then I closed the door. By the time the evening news rolled out, Samantha's empire was already in freefall. The talking heads didn't hold back. Valiant in crisis. CEO silent amid infrastructure lockdown. Founding engineer allegedly behind system seizure. My name wasn't in every headline. Not yet. But it was starting to surface. Whispers, citations, archived articles people hadn't read in years. Former employees were coming forward, speaking anonymously. Some not so anonymously. And every time Samantha tried to shift the story, with press releases or bland corporate statements, it made her look weaker. Like she'd lost control not just of the company, but of reality. I stayed quiet. No interviews. No statements. Just silence. Let her chase the narrative while I rewrote it. Valiant's core clients, logistics firms, hedge funds, federal departments, began issuing complaints by mid-afternoon. Not because their systems had stopped. I hadn't touched performance. I wasn't stupid. But everything required my biometric now. Any executive-level changes, account management, scaling decisions, all frozen. Everything bottlenecked at me. And no one could find me. I watched from a distance as the pressure built. Stock price bleeding out. Internal memos leaked. Rumors swirled that Samantha had ousted the wrong partner, that I'd built something no one else understood, that her empire was a house of glass with no architect inside. At 4:23 p.m., the board issued an emergency vote. I wasn't on the call, but someone forwarded me the result. She was out. Removed as CEO. A public announcement came 30 minutes later, stiff and formal, the kind of release that uses words like transition, realignment, focus on continuity. But the message was clear. Samantha Vaughn was no longer in charge. I watched the press conference from my couch. She didn't show up. I wasn't surprised. Her silence wasn't strategy. It was surrender. The next morning, the floodgates opened. Tech blogs published exposés about the real origin of Valiant. Interviews from old engineers, early collaborators. Photos of our whiteboards from 2016. Conference clips where I presented the original engine. Screenshots of Git logs with my name on every commit. The narrative flipped. I wasn't the ghost in Samantha's shadow anymore. I was the foundation she tried to bury. And she? She became the cautionary tale. Her face disappeared from magazine covers. Investors distanced themselves. Former allies posted cryptic tweets and deleted shared photos. Public support curdled into silence, then into disgust. I heard, through a mutual acquaintance, that she tried to sell off her remaining shares. No one wanted them. Valiant's valuation had dropped by half, and she didn't control the product anymore. I did, but I wasn't done. Not yet. I didn't want just to watch her fall. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be erased, like I had. So I gave the press what they needed, just enough access to the truth. The documents, the code history, the original architecture blueprints, all under my name. Quietly published on a Git archive under a timestamped public key, verified, clean, unchallengeable. No press release. No victory lap. Just facts. Let the world do the rest. And it did. The room was hers once. She designed it, down to the wall texture and the dimmable lights, minimalist, sharp, powerful. This was the venue Samantha had picked for Valiant's upcoming global expansion announcement. A black tie tech event meant to signal dominance, reinforce her image as the visionary. Instead, it became her funeral. Not literal, reputational. When the company removed her, they still went forward with the event. Investors were already flying in. Clients, too. Canceling would look like weakness. They needed a steady hand. I offered to present. No one objected. They were too desperate. So now, I stood at the front of 100 seated executives. Cameras everywhere. The Valiant logo pulsing behind me on a massive LED screen. She was in the crowd. I saw her the second I walked on stage. Third row, dark dress, arms crossed, jaw tight. She hadn't expected me to show up, let alone hold the mic. I began the presentation as if everything was normal. Charts, future plans, new architecture. I spoke clearly, precisely. The room nodded along. Applauded where expected. Then I changed the slide. A black screen. White text. Who built Valiant? Murmurs. Then the next slide. Screenshots. Code commits. Old Slack logs. Calendar invites with her removing me from leadership syncs. DMs between her and a former advisor, mocking my quiet little role in the background. Someone near the front gasped. Others turned in their seats. She shifted in her chair. The final slide was a short screen recording. The admin panel, showing every layer of the system's core tied to my biometric. The very foundation she claimed to have owned, still under my control. Silence. I let it hang. Then I spoke. Samantha Vaughn tried to write me out of this company's history. And for a while, she succeeded. You were all complicit. Investors, partners, press. You believed what was easy to publish. A pause. But systems remember what people forget. I clicked the remote one last time. The screen went dark. Then a single phrase appeared. The mask has fallen. No more cameras needed. Gasps turned into whispers. She stood up. Maybe to speak. Maybe to leave. I'll never know. Because I walked off stage. Straight down the side aisle. Past the lights. Past the silence. Past her. I didn't look at her face. She didn't say my name. As I exited into the hallway, I heard someone behind me say, "Jesus, she's finished." But I didn't stop. I didn't smile. I didn't say a word. This wasn't triumph. This was closure. Calculated. Surgical. The door shut behind me. And that was the last time I ever stepped into a room with Samantha Vaughn in it.